Hi folks, my name is Kevin Dunn, and welcome to Agency Unfiltered, a bi-weekly web series and podcast that interviews agency owners around agency operations, growth, and scale. Nobody knows how to scale agencies better than those that are already doing it, and they're happy to share an unfiltered look into what has worked and what hasn't. For this episode, Trav White, Managing Director of Neighbourhood, flew all the way from Brisbane, Australia to Boston to talk about his agency's rebrand. Formerly known as the Raiders, Trav and his team made the decision to fully rebrand the agency. So in this episode, we talk about his motivations, the process, and the rollout of his agency's full rebrand. Should you be considering a rebrand? The answer's here in Agency Unfiltered. Trav, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to Agency Unfiltered.
Thanks for having me. And I'm in Boston as well, which is pretty cool.
Yes,
first time.
A long trip.
Yeah, very 26 hours from Australia. So.
And what did you think about, you went to the Red Sox game, what did you think about Fenway and the Red Sox?
Amazing. I came over with my New York hat on, and I kind of got thrown a bit of heat for wearing that. So I definitely went to the game with my Boston hat on yesterday.
That's good.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, so you can take the Yankee hat and just throw that in the trash. I mean, Sox hats are nice. Blue and red's a nicer color scheme. So.
Next time I go to New York, I'll put my Yankee hat on.
Well, I'm excited to talk about a recent rebrand that your agency just kind of completed or maybe are actively going through still.
Yeah.
But I'd love to just hear lessons learned, the reasons kind of behind why it was time to rebrand. And so maybe just to start, give us kind of that point in time where you're like, you know what, we should be taking our agency and rebranding who we are and how we communicate ourselves to the market.
Yeah. So originally our agency was called the Raiders. Why was it called the Raiders? Just because we came up with the name and we just sort of rolled with it.
Yeah.
And what we did is when we first started, we actually started as a creative agency, and we did a lot of creative for Red Bull, like literally around the world. And then I was super interested in digital and sort of the analytics side of things and wanting to learn a lot more about it. One of the staff members at the time came up to me and said, Trav, you should look into HubSpot. And I was like, what is this HubSpot stuff? Anyway, so I jumped on a call with Kieran and we went through it. And I think one of the most beneficial things for me is that HubSpot, was actually the academy, was that it provided the training, little plug.
Yeah, appreciate that.
It provided the training not only to forward myself, but also the staff. Yeah. So they obviously put me onto the free CRM and they put me into the free academy, and you sort of start not getting brainwashed, but you start saying, hey, I'm getting a lot of value for this. So we moved from a creative agency and we basically started hitting the ground running and becoming a digital agency. Everyone's too busy to do any of their own stuff. They're leaky taps. You can't work on your own stuff. So we're off to the races. We got silver, gold within the first sort of 9 months. And I think we got platinum within the first sort of like 18 months.
That's great.
So we were super busy just, rolling out what we knew and what we'd learned. And we had a really great network of referrals, and we did great work so people would refer us and keep coming through. Kind of got to a point that I was having really awkward conversations because essentially we were a creative agency and people were like, what do you do? And I'd have to sort of keep repeating what I was saying. Like, what do you do? I was like, well, we're a digital marketing agency that we sort of implement inbound. Let me tell you a little bit about inbound. And we can also do integrations. We can also do content. And we started going through it, but I was having that same conversation, and you knew you weren't in the right place because you had your parents going, what do you actually do?
Yeah.
It's like, you said that you do stuff with websites, but you're a creative agent. Like, what do you do? And I was like, so in there I was like, okay, it's going to make it a lot easier for me if we just sort of stop and try to recalibrate where we were as an agency and say, okay, what do we do right now? Like, what have we learned and what do we do? We started that journey 2.5 years ago. We started it 2.5 years ago, and because we were a creative agency and because we, were in our process of becoming the best partners that we could be for our clients. We were almost hypercritical about who we were and where we wanted to be.
Sure.
Almost to a point where we, because there was no structure internally, like if we wanted to come up with our new brand and positioning, if we weren't 100% happy with it, we'd just start again. Which is a little bit different, because if a client comes to us, they give us a brief, we know the clear scope, we know exactly what we need to do. But when you have control of the project, you tend to probably not follow that structure as much as possible.
Well, I mean, is there any element of like emotional attachment to the name and the brand and the business you've built thus far?
Absolutely, yeah. And I went to New York and I went and I saw these amazing brands, and I came back, I was like, I love this brand and I love this brand and I love this brand. And then we tried to adapt what we were doing to the brands that we saw. Now I know what I know. It's not about what the brand looks like. It's about the purpose of what it's about.
Sure.
Which is a very expensive and long journey.
So like, what does the process look like? Is it a lot of whiteboarding? Is it a lot of like brainstorming? So how do you determine like, okay, how do we want to, well, one, create a new name and a brand for ourselves, but also a whole new purpose, positioning statement, and kind of all of the surround sound verbiage about who we are? Like, what does that actual process look like?
Yeah. So we tried to do that internally for ourselves. We sat at the whiteboard, and I had every single staff member a part of that journey, because they're connected to that brand as much as I am. I'm just the guy that pays the bills, and these are the guys that actually run the company.
Yeah.
We whiteboarded and we put all of our ideas down, and we kept sort of executing the idea, but coming back, executing the idea and coming back. And it's funny because we were downstairs having a few beers where we work, and the guys actually that are next to us, we sort of work in a creative hub in Fortitude Valley in Brisbane, and we're all having beers downstairs. And I was talking to a good mate of mine, Mark, who works next door for a company called Ply, and he was like, yeah, I completely understand your frustration. He goes, we're a creative agency as well, and we can't do it. We've been trying to do it for years. And we came to an agreement, like we came to sort of the realization that, like, if you're creative, you self-sabotage your whole ideas. Yeah. And Mark went out to me and said, Trav, I'm going to put it out there. Can I be involved in this? Because I'm not emotionally attached to your brand. Like, it's not that I don't care. It's just that I'm not emotionally attached. Yeah. He goes, I do this sort of stuff day in, day out. So do you. But if I can come in and just be that
third party, outside perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So it kind of, like, the fact that I had to go, and we invested a lot of money internally, but the fact that I had to go and invest like actual cash now to a third party, I sort of weighed it up, and I knew it was the right thing to do. So I sort of called Dave and Mark and I said, guys, I really, really want to do this. And the work that they do is beautiful. It's amazing. And so we sat down and we did a workshop, and we sort of did exactly what we did where we did it internally, except like they were always hypercritical of our answers and asking us why. And this is the stuff that we weren't doing ourselves. Yeah. We sort of ended up as our strapline as find your people, which is essentially like finding. Well, actually, let me just say, we went from the Raiders to Neighbourhood. Yep. Because Neighbourhood was a community. We were building communities for all of our clients. And then we come up with the strapline, find your people.
Do you have to like put it to a vote? Was it a unanimous decision to make that move, or?
Well, it's funny. I sort of came up with the name, and I came into the office, and I'll just blurt it out. I said, "Hey guys, what do you think?" And everyone went, "That's actually pretty cool. That's really cool." Yeah. And then Mark said, "There's a lot more we can work with here from Neighbourhood than Raiders," because it was almost a bit negative, the whole Raiders. So I guess the next process for us is that once we had the name and the strapline and we sort of had this whole community, it was really about diving a little bit deeper into the purpose and the reasoning and the why, and how do we tie our craft to the name. Yeah. And I looked at every single partner's website, every single digital marketer's website, and I wanted it to be in a position where a brand and our messaging was, if we had 10 websites lined up, which is what people do, they Google and look, is that how do we be completely different from everybody else? So I wanted to steer away from the methodology, the HubSpot methodologies, not because I didn't want to be recognized as a HubSpot partner.
I'm insulted.
Edit that part out. But I kind of wanted to be like, you know what, if we're going to get, if we're going to weigh up diamond, platinum, and gold partners, how can I stand out from that? So we now do marketing, sales, and customer service. And after sort of sitting down with, Mark and Dave and the team, we really settled on, we help you find your people, we help you sell to your people, and we help you keep your people.
Nice.
And I really like that because it's creative, it's super creative, but it's a little bit more than just saying we do sales, marketing, and customer service. So, and you're almost like super proud of it too, because I guess we invested a lot of time and money into it, but it has meaning and purpose, and you kind of wear the shirt with pride, like with a lot of pride, because
I mean, that's how you should feel about your brand, regardless of the business.
And that's not how we felt last time with the old one, because it was just a logo and it was just slapped up there.
Yeah.
So
there's just way more meaning behind this new iteration of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
So you've obviously landed on the brand, the purpose, kind of the find your people type messaging. How do you then have those conversations with your customers? Did you give them heads up ahead of time? How did those conversations happen in person, or was it an email blast? Like, talk me through how you actually got the message out there to your customers.
I think you might have been on the email lists that
actually, that's a good point. I think I was actually, yeah.
So I wanted to do something a little bit different, and we weren't eating our own dog food as such with our own HubSpot portal at the time. So we sort of sent an email out saying farewell the Raiders, and the idea for that, some people were a bit like, oh, that's annoying, but some people reached out to us and said, hey, like, what's going on? And we sort of started a conversation, had a few coffees and beers with a few clients to sort of say, hey, what's going on? And is the business closing down?
Yeah,
And it's like, we're rebranding. But yeah, we started, I think it was a trail of maybe 6 or 7 emails where we were saying goodbye to what we had, and we were saying hello to what the future was, and sort of telling that story. We sort of told the story about it's our service offering. It was the same service offering of what we were doing before. We just never really spoke about it or felt proud enough to talk about it in any way. So we sort of had almost like a workflow set up that would gradually just start to educate people on what we do and how we offer, what we offer, and the methodologies that we have. And because we were talking, it actually created a lot of conversations. And funny enough, leads were just popping out of nowhere.
Right. Well, it's the perfect way to engage maybe these colder leads or folks that decided not to move forward with an engagement previously, so you can nurture all of these leads again.
Yeah. And I genuinely, we were having, our business was based on referrals, and it's amazing, to not really have to spend any money at all on marketing as an agency and just get referrals. But once you're proud of your brand and you created something that, that you actually, you spend a lot of time on, and it's the services that you provide, and a lot of time and energy have gone into every word and every single little part. I was on LinkedIn and talking about it, how I was proud about it, the passion that came out from that. I literally would have 5 leads a week, just literally people going, hey Trav, I love your brand, I love the passion that you're doing, can we have a conversation? And it's just almost like a grenade of leads. I threw it into the water and they just came out of nowhere. So since then, we've really focused on our marketing spend is just on content.
That's great.
Helping find their people and sell to their people, but we're just pushing content out, and it's I get probably at the moment just organically we get three leads a week just by people reading our content on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever, and just asking, hey, we read your content. Is this something? Can you help me out with this or whatnot? And it's refreshing because you kind of feel settled that you're not a creative agency anymore. You're a HubSpot partner. What your website says, what you actually do, and you're actually genuinely helping people because the content that you've got actually is helping people. So
the purpose resonated with us, and so it's probably gratifying to say, well, this new purpose, this new brand is resonating with others as well.
I think, and what I was sort of saying off camera to you before was that when we first started as a HubSpot partner, I made it a mission that every single person did every certification.
Yeah.
And I think everybody got all of them done through.
And not a single one is expired, is what you were also saying. Yeah.
Mine may have expired in the meantime.
Yeah.
But we sort of crafted the brand around what we learnt from the academy. And like the academy is fantastic. Like it is good. It taught me everything I knew today. Okay. And how we communicated our marketing at that point, after 2 years of real world experience, where we were and what we thought, how we needed to market ourselves to where we were 2 years ago, it was vastly different. And I think that,
I mean, once you get into the weeds and the day-to-day and just like get the real world hands-on experience.
Well, understanding people's problems too. Like, like we understand that we need to attract and help people convert and delight and all that sort of jazz. But like the problems you learn, like, and through hard times and through the good times, you learn what people's problems and how you can help people and better serve them. And it was only until you really do 2 years of really hard yakka and having tough conversations and high-fiving and doing really big wins is that you kind of come out the other side and go, okay, all right, I understand what people are looking for now.
Yeah. Now I understand what it's all about.
Yeah. So like even on our marketing, marketing, sales and customer service page, I think Dom, who's here, it basically said, why don't we just put questions that people are asking in their head saying, you might need our services if these questions are popping in your head.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a bunch of leads, but I can't convert them. Or I have a lot of views on my blog post, but nobody's giving me their details.
Mm-hmm.
And that's resonated really well with a lot of people that come through. I said, because I always ask, why did you come through? And they said, oh, we landed on this page. And I was asking myself those same questions.
Those same questions. Yeah.
And we wouldn't have understood that if we didn't have that sort of the academy and also the 2 years of in the weeds.
Right. Throughout the whole process, was there anything that was initially unforeseen or unplanned that just became like a pitfall or a roadblock or something challenging? Like, what was the hardest part of going through a full rebrand that maybe you didn't anticipate at first?
The time is, and the time you've got to almost take away from all of the client work, because we wanted to give it everything. I think finding the right person that can do the job but culturally understands, because I think there's a lot of companies out there that can do rebranding and help you step in the right direction, but I think culturally you guys are going to be on the same level. In no way do I wear collars to work, or I'm fairly casual, so culture for me was super important.
Sure.
That if I spoke to somebody, that they would just get it and understand it and whatnot. So I think time would be the big part, but also selecting the right, if you are not going to do it yourself, is working with culturally the right people so that sort of they nail it the first time.
Right.
Because I think we've all been there where we've worked with a contractor or a supplier that's just missed the mark, and everyone had really good intentions, but just culturally just off, just not on the same page.
Culture has to be a fit. You have to enjoy working with that person. They have to have a sense of who you and your team are as well.
Yeah. And even back on that, I made a misfire, which I haven't spoken about, where I was crawling the website for amazing brands, and I landed on a Polish company to try and help us out with the rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
I invested a lot of money initially once I sent the money over to them, and culturally they just weren't on the same page, and we ended up investing a lot of money in the initial concepts with those guys. And that's why I think culture is super important for who you work with, because these guys had done previous amazing brands, but we were just on completely different levels. Like, I almost think that the brands that they created were, a one-off, because everything they gave me was completely not what I was asking for. But, having Mark and Dave next door, really, they were like good mates that were helping you out.
I mean, if anything, now you're probably just empathetic to a customer's journey and finding the right agency. Like, you literally just went through it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think they took time in working with us to sort of sit down and they truly, I think for them it was, I think the first time working together that they kind of felt like they were working with some mates, and like they'd come up with a really good idea, and I'm like, man, I respect your ideas, run with it. And I wasn't that client that was like, I want to cut you off at the knees, because I hate it when people do it with our work. And so I think that they looked at it and said, we're going to make this like our best work so we can go out there and push. And you know what? They have marketed some of our work, and we've won a whole bunch of awards for the work that we've all worked on.
You with, yeah.
And they're using that to sort of get more work. So it's been a really, really rewarding, very long and expensive, but rewarding sort of experience. Yeah.
Last question for you. Ask this to everybody. What is the weirdest part of agency life?
So I have a thing that I say internally. It's called patting the chicken, and so
we're gonna need context.
Yeah, we're gonna need some context.
Yeah.
I can't leave it there. But patting the chicken is clients just what I find really strange, and I'm probably a bit more empathetic about it now. But sometimes clients obviously want meetings for the sake of meetings, just to feel comfortable about the process. And I think the weirdest thing for me is that sometimes I have to pat the chicken. I know full well that the conversation isn't going to give any value to them, but I think probably empathetically to them.
Just the conversation itself is just, they just want to hear from you.
Comforting them. And I call it patting the chicken. It's funny, we're at Inbound at the moment in Boston, and I had a client call up, and Dom, who's here with me, sort of goes, what are you going to do? I was like, I just got to pat the chicken in for a little bit. So just, I'll be 45 minutes.
Yeah, I'll meet up with you after. Yeah, just pat the chicken.
But yeah, it's, I don't know. Would that be the weirdest thing, Dom? Now that I say it,
I mean,
I don't know if it's weird.
Yeah,
it's probably.
I would say the terminology is weird. Certainly unique. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, there was. You can use any of these if you want, but I think one of the weirdest things that we've had in the past is, and I think it's natural, is clients' reluctance to tell it like it is, and sometimes they'll self-sabotage their own projects and not be real in some capacity. And I don't think you can pick that, but it's super strange. There's some weird humans out there. Yeah. I think that if anything, that's the weirdest.
Self-sabotage and patting the chicken sometimes. That's not bad, man. Listen, we're out of time. We gotta split, but I appreciate you coming on. It's
cool.
been an absolute pleasure, man.
Thanks very much. Good to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Agency Unfiltered. If you like what you saw, heard, or read, make sure to subscribe to our playlist on YouTube, our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or our newsletter on agencyunfiltered.com. Alongside episode launch notifications, the newsletter also comes with a ton of other helpful, strategically curated agency content from yours truly. And if you want to keep the conversation going or provide a counterpoint to this episode's discussion, tweet me at Kevin_Dunn. I'll see you again in 2 weeks, but in the meantime, keep it unfiltered and let's all grow.